If I could start investing in real estate all over again, I would ignore almost all of the advice I got the first time around. Now, don't get me wrong, there were some good principles in there, and it certainly came from some incredibly successful and wealthy people. Don't want to knock it entirely, but somewhere along the way, my husband and I realized that they were building an empire around a lifestyle that we no longer really wanted, around this fantasy life that we were sold but realized I don't think that's exactly what we are wanting. Trying to copy and paste their blueprint for success ended up costing us a ton of time, a ton of money, and a whole lot of peace. So today I want to talk about everything that I would do differently if I got a clean slate and could start all over, not as somebody who is a guru or a finance bro, but as somebody who truly did jump into the deep end, failed very publicly and very terribly, and learned some very, very expensive lessons. So let's get started. Hello, friend and fellow adventurer. My name is Kayla. I'm a multi-passionate creative doing all the things and documenting my messy middle so you don't feel so alone in yours. Welcome back to Sidequests and Sideeyes, part cozy tavern, part strategy guide, and tons of unhinged chaos. Around these parts, we take a hard side eye to hustle culture, go the pace of grace, which is usually very slow, and celebrate every small win. Showering does count. I'm back and taking a slight diversion from my normal content. I normally talk a lot about creativity and the creative process and just kind of try to encourage other creatives out there along the way. And I did a different video about real estate as well, and I just feel like it ended up being really encouraging because real estate is that thing that a lot of times creatives, including myself, pursue as a hope to create this passive income so that can kind of serve as the 9 to 5 so that you can be, a non-starving artist all day long. Anyways, I felt like that was a fun video to make. It seemed like people enjoyed it. So we are here doing another round talking about what would I do differently. I told you about my previous horror story. If you haven't watched that one, feel free to do that one. I talk about how our final project as real estate investors, we bombed in totally. We barely got out of it. We got out of that one by the skin of our teeth. We made no money. We came out as a big goose egg at zero, which honestly is a win because we were in a pretty big hole. So I'm not complaining. But now I want to talk about, okay, so that was terrible. You talked about how you got there. So now that you know what you know, what would you do differently this time around? Well, thank you for asking. I want nothing more than to tell you. I go more in detail about how we ended up in real estate and why we got into it in the first place in this other video. If that's something you're interested in, then again, go check that out. But a quick recap, the main reason why we ended up in real estate in the first place is we wanted passive income. We were sold that fantasy, that dream, that ideal life, right? Having a portfolio of real estate investments is going to create the passive income so that you can quit your 9 to 5 and you can travel the world full time and pursue your creative desires and fill in the blank. The truth is, I still want that. I still want that. And I still think that real estate has the ability to be one option to help make that happen. However, a lot in our lives have changed. Now we have a small child. She is 2 months. She's 2 months old now. And, we've gone through more life and there's just some perspective changes now that just bring a little bit more nuance to wanting what we wanted back then. We still want that dream. We still want that fantasy, but it's a little less way out in outer space and a little bit more like, oh, I want that, but let's make it fit real life, not the influencer lives that you see on social media, not the, 1 in a million exceptions to the rule where everything just goes perfectly grand and they have tons of excess money. It's not that we don't go after that dream, but maybe we just bring it down just a notch. Okay, enough rambling. What would I do differently if I were starting investing in real estate all over again. The first thing, I mentioned this in that previous video, is like the first thing I would do is I would start with my own money. The investment group that we were a part of was very big on using other people's money. They called it OPM, using other people's money. And it's not, that wasn't like we want to take advantage of other people. The idea was you have these people like doctors and lawyers who have tons of money. They have liquid cash lying around and they don't want to put it in the bank, or maybe they're not getting a good ROI in the bank, right? You know, savings account, even a money market account. You know, maybe they want to diversify their portfolio. They don't want to have it all in stocks and bonds and hedge funds and those kinds of things. Or, you know, there's a lot of different people out there who have a lot of money, and instead of getting a HELOC or a personal loan from the bank, you could get a loan from somebody who, you know, it's mutually beneficial. And that was kind of the whole philosophy of OPM, other people's money. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I just think as very young kids, we weren't kids, but like as very young adults who had never done that before, I just look back and I think I would just have taken the time and waited, not gotten a loan from anybody, even the bank, and taken my time to save up money and use our own money for that first project. And here's the reason why. When you use your own money, you move differently. You move differently. When we went from you know, using the money from the personal loan on that fix and flip. And then when we kind of like used the last of that, and then we had to like go get jobs so that we could pay to continue to finish this project, all of a sudden we started showing up differently to that project, if that makes sense. You know, now all of a sudden it hurts a little bit more. And I don't want to say I mean that like it was like willy-nilly, like, oh, we're just using this, you know, loan, it's not a big deal. But it's like, I don't know, when it's your own money, you just move differently because it's your money. And the other side of that coin is when you are using other people's money, or you're using a loan of sorts, like there's a lot more pressure. There's a lot more pressure on you because you realize like, oh, this isn't my money. And so there was like this two-edged sword for us where it was like, had we used our own money from the beginning, I think we would have made different decisions, because when we had this loan we felt, because we didn't actually have that money, we felt like, oh my gosh, we can do this. We're going to make these are like powerful decisions and like do the thing. We felt, I don't know, I think we maybe flew a little too close to the sun. Whereas had we had taken that loan and just done the work ourselves, honestly, it would have been better. But again, I think the first thing I would have done was I would have used our own money, taking the time to let the money build over time, yeah, I definitely would have just done that instead of borrowing. In a similar vein, if I were to get into real estate investment again, the second thing I would do is I would do mostly everything ourselves. I would do absolutely everything ourselves, because the truth is, aside from like a handful of things, unless you are terrible with using tools and whatnot, like you can learn anything, how to do anything on YouTube now. Okay. Like there's no reason that we can't learn how to build a house by ourselves on YouTube for the most part. There are certain things I'm still not going to touch, like obviously putting in the electric is, I mean, I probably could figure out how to do it, but you need permits for certain things. So it's like, the electric, some of the plumbing stuff, I'm not going to do. There's going to be a few things here and there that like, I'm not going to touch simply because I don't want to blow myself up or the next person behind me or burn somebody or the house to the ground. But what I will say is when you learn the skills of doing everything yourself, especially if you're going to get into like a fix and flip, especially, it's just, I can't describe the difference of how we were able to operate in that project once we started doing things ourselves versus when we were hiring a contractor. Because when we were doing it ourselves, we saw all of the details. We saw all of the details. Whereas previously, we knew enough to know that we didn't know enough. And so when we were hiring people, when you delegate and outsource and you are not an expert in that thing, sometimes that can come and bite you in the butt. I don't want to say that that is a bad course of action, but this is why it hurt us, because we didn't know the details and we weren't an expert. We weren't even just past kind of a basic knowledge in home repair, in those sorts of things, that when we outsource that to a contractor, we didn't know the price. We didn't know the scope of work. We didn't know how to price shop. We didn't know any of those different things. And so I think it ended up costing us a lot of time and money. Whereas if we would have just done everything ourselves the first time, it would have taken a lot longer. Yes, would have taken a lot longer, but we would have learned a lot more. And I think we would have gotten the skills that we needed to actually properly outsource and properly delegate to the right people that would have made the project. Like if we would have done that on our first one, then I think the second one would have been a lot better, if that makes sense. So the second thing I would have done, the second thing I would do if I were starting all over clean slate, was I would do mostly everything by myself. I would do it on my own. I just would. If I were to get into real estate investment again, the third thing I would do would be to move slower. I would just move a lot slower. And I know that there's a certain philosophy and a certain way to pursue real estate that it moves faster. And if that works for you, awesome. I think for me, if I were to get back into it, I would just move a lot slower. Looking back, we tried so hard to move quickly. And because we were moving so quickly, we made poor decisions along the way that had we been moving a little bit slower, I think we would have seen some of those potential red flags, or at least yellow flags, that would have given us pause before taking the next step. But because we were always so nervous to find that perfect deal or make that perfect sale, like we just moved from a place of scarcity mindset, of FOMO, like fear of missing out, and just like this pressure to scale, get bigger, get faster, get better. When really we were newbies, there was no reason to move that fast. There was just no reason to move that quickly. So if you are considering real estate investment and maybe you've been listening to a lot of these fast-paced real estate gurus, like if you want to give that a go, more power to you. If you're kind of like feeling my vibe and like you kind of like, you're my kind of people, maybe just move a little slower. Take your time. Just take your time. It'll go well with you that way. The fourth thing I would reconsider if I were getting back into real estate investment would be using a realtor. Now, before we get crazy, this one depends on the situation, the context, right? There are some really, really great realtors out there. My husband was a realtor for a season. But I will say, because he was a realtor, it definitely opened my eyes to a lot of things as well. Of like, it highlighted the really great realtors, but it also really highlighted the not so great realtors. So if I were starting again, I think I would just really try to decide if I were going with a realtor and if I weren't going with a realtor. But if we can do for sale by owner now. You know what I'm saying? Like that kind of goes back to learning everything yourself. Is like you learn a lot, and so then you're able to like figure it out. And so since we've been there, since Daryl's been a realtor and my mom is a CPA and also has done a lot of real estate dealings, like there's just a lot of things that I would reconsider using a realtor automatically. And if I did choose to go with a realtor, I would be very, very careful about what realtor I did use, what their fees, what they're doing, what's included, what's not. Yeah, every layer of like outsourcing removes control, and it also adds a cost. And so choosing a realtor or choosing a realtor or using one at all would be something I would just decide from the get-go, like, am I going to on this project or am I not? So do with that information what you will. And finally, the fifth thing I would do differently if I were getting back into real estate investment is I would consider buy and holds over fix and flips. Now, technically we did start with buy and holds, but of course, you look at the numbers and you hear the stories and you think, okay, but I can get bigger chunks of money potentially by selling this fix and flip over this buy and hold. And so like the cost, the ROI and the ratio of like what I'm getting now versus what I'm getting later versus monthly versus, cost now, profit later, all of those things, like you got to run the numbers on that. Okay. There are ups and downs, pros and cons to either side, but the fact that like Daryl and I ended up breaking even at all on that final one is truly, honestly, a miracle. It is a miracle that we broke even on that last project. But I think if I were starting again, I would definitely consider focusing on a buy and hold over a fix and flip. I don't believe in like being a slumlord, and I don't believe in coming in, doing this massive renovation and then renting super, super high. I'd want to do something that is very practical and helpful for families. But I feel like when you're doing a fix and flip, a lot of times like the timelines are really tight and the margins can be really, really thin. Whereas a buy and hold, I don't know, sometimes it feels like there's just a little bit more space. Again, every context is different. Every situation can be amazing or terrible, whether it's a fix and flip or a buy and hold. I've done both, but I think if I were starting again, I might start with the buy and hold for a while and build a little bit of portfolio of that before moving back into the fix and flips, because fix and flips are fun when they're going well and they suck when they're not going well. Okay, so I told you 5 things that I would do differently if I were getting back into real estate. Let's play a little imagination game. Like if I had the money, the means, the time, the resources to dive in tomorrow, or okay, let's say within the next year back into real estate, what exactly would you do? This is exactly what I do. And I wrote this down, so just bear with me if I'm looking off screen. But first of all, I would find a house with really good bones. It doesn't need to be falling apart and it doesn't need to be perfect. Just I would find a basic home that had really good bones, like a 3-2, maybe 1,200 square foot. Probably would even avoid 2 stories, just like a ranch, right? Basic home. I would pick a home like that in a growing city, and I would pick an area that's showing like slow, steady growth, but that's like not already picked over by investors. So this is going to be an area that's considered, safe for families. We can't label and grade neighborhoods because that's not ethical, but, I would just pick an area that's just generally a good area that's showing some steady growth. There are some schools, there's community, there are community happenings going on, but it's not like the high-end area that everybody wants to be in necessarily, right? It's not picked over. That's the big thing, is like, I don't want to go somewhere where like everybody's buying and holding and fixing and flipping. Like I'd want to pick somewhere where it's like, okay, it's just salt of the earth neighborhood, right? And then the next thing is I would honestly move into it. I would move into it and I would do all of the work myself over the next 1 to 3 years. I would move in. That way there's a lot less pressure, right? I don't have 2 bills going on. I don't have my house or my apartment and this house. Done that before. It's honestly not great. Unless you can do it, like it's not great. So I would live in it, do the work while I'm there, and that way there's no rush. right? There's no like 90-day, let's go, let's go, let's go. And that gives me the opportunity to build skill. It gives me the opportunity to really put like a lot of thought and effort and love into the project. And also, I live where I'm doing the work. So it's like, okay, now I don't have to like go over to this other place to do the work, and then bring everything back, because we got robbed once. That was fun from our fix and flip. That was a fun time, so it's like, if I live there, it's a lot easier to keep everything under one roof, all the tools. It just makes things more seamless. So honestly, that is what I would do. If I had, in the next year, I could get back into real estate. I had all the time, the money, the resources, the context, everything lined up. That's the exact plan that I would do to get back in. So take that information and do with it what you will. So maybe you watched this video because you were just curious of why on earth I would be talking about real estate, or maybe you're genuinely curious if real estate could be something that could help you create some margin. I've created this little PDF called the Happy Home Sidequest. I had to double check the name. The Happy Home Sidequest. And it's something I wish I had a few years ago more than a few years ago now, but I wish I had 6, 7, 8 years ago when we were first starting in real estate. And it just would help me have a little bit of clarity. It's like a clarity workbook. It just helps me understand maybe a little bit more about like, oh, what am I doing? Why am I making these housing decisions? Is this a good one? Is it now? Is it not yet? Is it never? Just helps me get some grounding in myself, and instead of just focusing on the numbers of A plus B equals C, those are helpful. We do want to run the numbers. We want to do our due diligence. I'm not saying we don't do that, but let's also bring like the full weight of ourselves and our capacity and our life and our resources to the table when making these decisions. If that sounds like something that's interesting to you, the link is below. It's called the Happy Home Side Quest. It's $7. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. I enjoyed making it. It was really fun. So I hope it will be helpful for you. I'm going to end this video the way I always try to end this video is, if you haven't heard this recently, or maybe you've never heard this, is I'm proud of you and I think that your life is worth getting back up for. I'll see you next time. Bye, friend.